Interesting. Here in the woods, I live in each season as it passes, breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign myself to the influence of the earth. Confucius said, "To know that we know what we know, and that we do not know what we do not know, that is true knowledge." Interesting. I kept Homer's Iliad on my table through the summer, though I looked at his page only now and then. The necessaries of life for man in this climate may, accurately enough, be distributed under the several heads of food, shelter, clothing, and fuel. For not till we have secured these are we prepared to entertain the true problems of life with freedom and a prospect of success.
August, 1845. Dear Henry, don't forget that we care for you and miss you at home. Should you visit, I have left a surprise for you on the game table, as I know you love a good challenge. Stay safe and healthy. Your sister, Sophia.
When I return to my house, I find that visitors have been there and left their cards. Either a bunch of flowers, or a wreath of evergreen, or a name in pencil on a yellow walnut leaf, or a chip. Interesting. Many men walk by day, few walk by night. It's a very different season. Chancing to take a memorable walk by moonlight some years ago, I resolved to take more such walks and make acquaintance with another side of nature.
Ah, there you are, Henry. This new poem of yours is exceptional. I think it may be the purest strain and the loftiest that has yet peeled from this unpoetic American forest. Tell me, what are you working on next? And have you thought much of publishing your work so that it might reach beyond our small hamlet? My dear Miss Fuller, it is good to hear from you that work on the next issue of The Dial proceeds. I'm sending you a new piece that my young friend Thoreau has written for our journal. Talk with him but a few hours and you will find him a remarkable person, I am certain. He is a treasured companion, and I have had the most memorable conversations with him about nature and all else. We're all well, and young Waldo sends you his love. R.W. Emerson. Ah, hello.
Ah, good morning. Huh.
Ah, you found my Confucius. Good for you, Henry. I wanted to look at that passage about knowing what we know and what we don't know. I know you must know the what I mean.
Yes, I've read it.
Well, that's good. I'd hoped you would, and that it would give you inspiration. Your experiment reminds me quite a bit of what Confucius says about needing only coarse rice for food, water to drink, and the bended arm for a pillow to achieve happiness. Since we're discussing these ethical scriptures, I've also been looking all over for my laws of Manu. I was reading it the other day over by the cleared area near Haywood's Peak. Have you seen it there by any chance?
I haven't seen it, but I can look for it.
Wonderful. Let me mark the very spot I think I left it on your map so that you can find it.
That shouldn't be difficult to find. I'll see you again soon. Interesting. A written word is the choicest of relics. It is something at once more intimate with us and more universal than any other work of art. Interesting. White Pond and Walden are great crystals on the surface of the earth, lakes of light. If they were permanently congealed and small enough to be clutched, they would, perchance, be carried off by slaves, like precious stones, to adorn the heads of emperors. But being liquid and ample, and secured to us and our successors forever, we disregard them. Interesting. What is a course of history or philosophy or poetry, no matter how well selected, or the best society, or the most admirable routine of life, compared with the discipline of looking always at what is to be seen? Time is but the stream I go a-fishing in. I drink at it, but while I drink, I see the sandy bottom and detect how shallow it is. Its thin current slides away, but eternity remains. I would drink deeper, fish in the sky, whose bottom is pebbly with stars. I cannot count one. When I was 4 years old, as I well remember, I was brought from Boston to this my native town, through these very woods in this field, to the pond. It is one of the oldest scenes stamped on my memory, and now tonight my flute has waked the echoes over that very water. I learned that it would cost incredibly little trouble to obtain one's necessary food, even in this latitude, that a man may use as simple a diet as the animals, and yet retain health and strength. I was as much affected by the faint hum of a mosquito making its invisible and unimaginable tour through my apartment at earliest dawn as I could be by any trumpet that ever sang of fame. As I sit at my window this summer afternoon, hawks are circling about my clearing, the tantivy of wild pigeons, flying by 2 and 3s athwart my view, or perching restless on the white pine boughs behind my house, give a voice to the air. A fish hawk dimples the glassy surface of the pond and brings up a fish. A mink steals out of the marsh before my door and seizes a frog by the shore. The sedge is bending under the weight of the reed birds flitting hither and thither, and for the last half hour I have heard the rattle of railroad cars, now dying away. Wishing to earn $10 or $12 by some honest and agreeable method, in order to meet my unusual expenses, I planted about 2 acres and a half of light and sandy soil, chiefly with beans. What shall I learn of beans or beans of me? I cherish them, I hoe them, early and late I have an eye to them, and this is my day's work. Fellow travelers, as they rattled by, compared it aloud with the fields which they had passed, so that I came to know how I stood in the agricultural world. Mine was, as it were, the connecting link between wild and cultivated fields. As some states are civilized, and others half-civilized, and others savage or barbarous, so my field was, though not in a bad sense, a half-cultivated field. Near at hand, upon the topmost spray of a birch, sings the brown thrasher, or red mavis, as some love to call him, all the morning, glad of your society, that would find out another farmer's field if yours were not here. While you are planting the seed, he cries, drop it, cover it up, pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. Before yet any woodchuck or squirrel had run across the road, or the sun had got above the shrub oaks, while all the dew was on, I began to level the ranks of haughty weeds in my bean field and throw dust upon their heads. In the course of the summer, it appeared by the arrowheads which I turned up in hoeing that an extinct nation had anciently dwelt here. As I drew a still fresher soil about the rows with my hoe, I disturbed the ashes of unchronicled nations who in primeval years lived under these heavens, and their small implements of war and hunting were brought to the light of this modern day. Daily the beans saw me come to their rescue armed with a hoe and thin the ranks of their enemies, filling up the trenches with weedy dead. Our whole life is startlingly moral. There is never an instant's truce between virtue and vice. Goodness is the only investment that never fails.
Henry, there you are.
Good afternoon.
Ah, you found my laws of Manu. Good for you, Henry. I wanted to look at that passage about temperance and the ways of Brahma. I know you know the one I mean.
Yes, I've read it.
Well, that's good. I'd hoped you would, and that it would give you inspiration. I wonder if this text, one of the 4 works of supreme authority for the Hindus, doesn't speak directly to your own experiment. As Manu says, resignation of all pleasures is far better than the attainment of them. It's so vital for us to read the wisdom of all the ancient philosophers. Oh, speaking of which, I'm also looking for my Plato. I was reading it the other day down on the northwest shore of the pond. Have you seen it there by any chance?
I haven't seen it, but I can look for it.
Wonderful. Let me mark the very spot I think I left it on your map so that you can find it.
That shouldn't be difficult to find. I'll see you again soon.
Dear Henry, I have set a little game for you based on our own favorite board, the woods. Here is the first piece of the puzzle. I rise above the forest floor, where once I lay in days of yore. A gentle hand has made formation in places hidden, though not forbidden. Come find me if you seek inspiration. Bonne chance, Sophia.
August 1838. Dear Sophia, it was so kind of your family to welcome us, and I hope we will see you all again soon. Edmund looks forward to starting his studies with your brothers, and I'm sure we will all see much more of each other. The poems Henry sent came safely and pleased us much. The sonnet entitled Beauty is my favorite. Best regards, Ellen Sewell.
July 1838. Dear Messieurs Thoreau, my sister, whom you know, has sent me a copy of the Yeoman's Gazette with your advertisement for a new Concord Academy, and suggested I contact you regarding the education of my son, Edmund Sewell. Edmund is a bright pupil, and is in need of instruction preparatory to a collegiate course, with the usual English branches of study. I will send him with my daughter Ellen as chaperone to meet you at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Reverend Edmund Quincy Sewell.
Dear Ellen, Sophia tells me you enjoyed the poems I sent, so here are some more brief lines for you with my best wishes. Nature never makes haste. Her systems revolve at an even pace. The bud swells imperceptibly, without hurry or confusion, as though the short spring days were an eternity. Why then should man hasten, as if anything less than an eternity were allotted for the last deed? As the wise man is not anxious that time wait for him, neither does he wait for it. Henry Thoreau. As I walked in the woods to see the birds and squirrels, so I walked to the village to see the men and boys. Instead of the wind among the pines, I heard the carts rattle. In one direction from my house, there was a colony of muskrats in the river meadows. Under the grove of elms and buttonwoods in the other horizon was a village of busy men, as curious to me as if they had been prairie dogs. Society is commonly too cheap. We meet at the post office and at the sociable and about the fireside every night. We live thick and are in each other's way and stumble over one another, and I think that we thus lose some respect for one another.
Hello, Henry.
Hello. The cost of a thing is the amount of what I will call life, which is required to be exchanged for it, immediately or in the long run. Summer is gone now, with all its infinite wealth, and still nature is genial to me. Though I no longer pluck so many berries on the hill, still I behold the same inaccessible beauty around me. Interesting.
What can I do for you?
One afternoon, near the end of the first summer, when I went to the village to get a shoe from the cobblers, I was seized and put into jail because, as I have elsewhere related, I did not pay a tax to, or recognize the authority of, the state which buys and sells men, women, and children like cattle at the door of its Senate house. I had gone down to the woods for other purposes, but wherever a man goes, men will pursue and paw him with their dirty institutions and, if they can, constrain him to belong to their desperate oddfellow society. Under a government which imprisons any unjustly, the true place for a just man is also a prison. I have paid no poll tax for 6 years. I was put into a jail once on this account for one night, and as I stood considering the walls of solid stone, 2 or 3 feet thick, the door of wood and iron, a foot thick, and the iron grating which strained the light, I could not help being struck with the foolishness of that institution which treated me as if I were mere flesh and blood and bones to be locked up. I did not for a moment feel confined, and the wall seemed a great waste of stone and mortar. Men have become the tools of their tools. The man who independently plucked the fruits when he was hungry has become a farmer, and he who stood under a tree for shelter, a housekeeper. We now no longer camp as for a night, but have settled down on earth and forgotten heaven. From under a rotten stump, my hoe turned up a sluggish, portentous, and outlandish spotted salamander, a trace of Egypt and the Nile, yet our contemporary. Sometimes the man in the bean field heard more of travelers' gossip and comment than was meant for his ear. Beans so late, he's so late. For I continued to plant when others had begun to hoe. Does he live there? Asks the black bonnet of the gray coat. And the hard-featured farmer reins up his grateful Dobbin to inquire what you are doing. It was a singular experience, that long acquaintance which I cultivated with beans. What with planting and hoeing and harvesting and threshing and picking over and selling them. The last was the hardest of all, I might add, eating, for I did taste. I was determined to know beans. I went so far as to slaughter a woodchuck which ravaged my bean field. effect his transmigration, as a Tartar would say, and devour him, partly for experiment's sake. This is the result of my experience in raising beans. Plant the common small white bush bean about the 1st of June in rows 3 feet by 18 inches apart, being careful to select fresh, round, and unmixed seed. Harvest as early as possible if you would escape frosts and have a fair and saleable crop.
October, 1845. Dearest Henry, Mother asks how you are doing with your work out there in the woods. Won't you come home sometime? I have been sorting through some old letters that you might like to see, and have left them out for you. Sophia.
Dear Henry, it seems like Concord is growing so rapidly these days. I see in the post office that there is much surveying work to be had for someone like yourself, who knows the land and loves to walk its every vista. Of course, surveying does aid in the parceling up of your beloved woods, and yet it is a living that could keep you while you write and live close to nature. A difficult choice, certainly. Yours sincerely, R.W.E.
Before we can adorn our houses with beautiful objects, the walls must be stripped, and our lives must be stripped, and beautiful housekeeping and beautiful living be laid for a foundation. A taste for the beautiful is most cultivated out of doors, where there is no house and no housekeeper. No man ever stood the lower in my estimation for having a patch in his clothes. Yet I am sure that there is greater anxiety commonly to have fashionable, or at least clean and unpatched.
Ah!